Contained item designated ZR-598, hereafter referred to as the Eidolon Mirror, exhibits properties related to memory distortion, psychological manipulation, and parasocial apparitions. The artifact presents in the form of an antiquated mirror, approximately 5 feet in height, and bordered by an intricate frame of tarnished silver. Upon initial observation, the mirror's surface appears clouded, as if obscured by mist, which dissipates under direct eye contact, revealing one's own reflection, as well as subtle, disturbing variations in the background. Dr. Celia Margot, aged 37, was selected for primary observation following anomalous behavioral changes in personnel who had previously examined ZR-598. Dr. Margot's expertise in cognitive anthropology and resistance to psychological suggestion were noted as key factors in her selection. Dr. Margot first entered observation chamber C for preliminary interaction with ZR-598 under supervision. Prior observations were conducted through CCTV monitors, documenting the object's presence but avoiding direct visual engagement. Upon standing within arm's length of the mirror, Dr. Margot appeared transfixed. She reported feeling lightheaded, describing the sensation as akin to standing on the edge of a cliff. For nearly 10 minutes, she remained motionless, staring directly into her reflection, her expression a complex mix of fascination and unease. After exiting the chamber, Dr. Margot offered the following statement. At first, I didn't realize it was me looking back. There was a delay, a fraction of a second, where my reflection hesitated before it mimicked my movements. And then, for a moment, it didn't mimic me at all. It smiled slightly, but my face was still. Only when I smiled back did it return to normal. It was like I was looking at something pretending to be me. Despite this unsettling interaction, Dr. Margot reported no negative after effects, and routine vitals remained within acceptable parameters. Overnight surveillance footage recorded Dr. Margot pacing the corridor outside Observation Chamber C, repeatedly stopping to look at the closed door. Despite these disruptions, she returned to her assigned quarters and completed several hours of fitful rest. At 11 a.m., Dr. Margot initiated a second interaction with ZR-598. This time, she was directed to verbally describe her experience, which was recorded by audio surveillance. Her tone displayed signs of agitation and curiosity that were markedly stronger than during her initial session. This time, it didn't hesitate at all. I smiled. It smiled. I tilted my head. It did the same. But when I glanced down for a moment, I swear it stayed. It didn't move. I looked back up, and it was already waiting for me, looking directly into my eyes, almost impatient. I could feel its gaze, even when I wasn't looking at it. Despite attempts to disengage, Dr. Margot lingered before the mirror, her speech becoming less coherent as she described her reflection's knowing smile and the increasing difficulty in distinguishing herself from the figure in the glass. Two days following her second exposure, Dr. Margot requested unsupervised access to ZR-598, claiming that the experiment was incomplete and that she needed answers. Access was granted with strict observation parameters, though no personnel were permitted inside the chamber with her. Upon entering, Dr. Margot did not immediately approach the mirror. She circled it, running her fingers along the tarnished silver edges, muttering inaudibly. She stood before it. Yet this time, there was no immediate reaction. Her reflection remained, but unlike before, it seemed less responsive, almost independent. Dr. Margot's subsequent description, logged via direct transcription, is as follows. It wasn't mirroring me at all. I waved my hand, lifted my arm, and it just stared back, expressionless. And then I think it moved before I did. I don't know how to describe it. My reflection stepped back, further and further, like it was going down a long corridor, even though I hadn't moved at all. It's impossible, but I felt it get farther away. It kept staring at me as it went, and the further it went, the darker it got behind it, like I was losing light in the room. Visual records confirm her account. However, an additional anomaly was noted. While her reflection appeared to retreat, another faint figure emerged in the distance, barely visible, its form distorted and elongating as though pulled from the shadows. At 4 a.m., Dr. Margot was discovered missing from her quarters. Security footage showed her exiting her room in a trance-like state, barefoot and muttering. She was last seen standing in the observation corridor outside Chamber C, whispering incomprehensibly into the reflective surfaces of various containment equipment. When personnel attempted to intercept her, Dr. Margot entered the containment chamber with ZR-598 before anyone could intervene. Surveillance captured her staring intently into the mirror, mouthing words that were analysed post-incident. Experts concluded she was repeating a phrase, "Let me in." As security forces entered, ZR-598's surface began to ripple, its clouded mist swirling into a vortex. Personnel reported seeing Dr. Margot's reflection step forward, even as the real doctor. Margot herself began to collapse to the ground. Her reflection leaned close to the glass, almost pressing itself forward, then withdrew, smirking slightly. It turned and walked into the shadows of the mirror, disappearing entirely as the surface stilled. Dr. Margot's physical form remained on the floor, unresponsive, showing no signs of life despite no evident cause of death. Medical teams reported her condition as voided, an inexplicable absence of all physical markers of her identity. Fingertips, retina, and dental records failed to align with any known individual. For all intents and purposes, Dr. Margot's existence had been erased, leaving only a shell devoid of identity. ZR-598 has been moved to maximum containment status. Any personnel exhibiting an unusual fascination with mirrors or reflective surfaces are now subject to immediate reassignment. Dr. Margot's remains are retained under cryogenic suspension, pending further investigation into whether identity reclamation is feasible. A final note from the primary containment officer underscores the artifact's ongoing threat. ZR-598 appears to hold the ability not just to mirror one's actions, but to steal them, to erase the very idea of who a person was. This mirror is no simple reflection. It is a gateway, a collector of souls that sees in its victims a hollow reflection it can step into, consuming their essence, leaving nothing behind.